Happy October, everybody. It's officially spooky season. Pumpkins, skeletons, vampires, all the stuff that goes bump in the night. And with the season comes seasonal projects. Scary movies, games, songs, decorations, food. I love this time of year. In this video, I'm gonna give you some tips on writing music that fits the spirit of the season. Those tips are harmony and melody, range and orchestration, silence, and a secret fourth tip. Stick around to the end of the video to hear it. If you like content like this, let me know by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Every click helps. Alright, let's get into it.
Part 1. Research.
It's one of the very few fall days in Texas, so I'm enjoying it right now. When you think of Halloween music or scary music, a few different things can come to mind. Maybe you think of the film scores of iconic movies like Halloween, or you think of 80s synth pop like Michael Jackson's Thriller. These and everything else in between are all definitely Halloween music, so we need to pick our niche a little bit more specifically. For this video, let's say we're trying to score a legit rated R horror movie. Think The Conjuring. That library of scary sounds and tropes is very different from that of a pop song or a more family-friendly movie like The Nightmare Before Christmas. So with our niche decided, the first step is research. Watch through movies that have a similar vibe to the project you're working on. This also works for web series, video games, and any other kind of media. You're not looking to steal ideas, but settle into the style of what you're trying to make. Immersing yourself into similar media will help your project fit into that genre more easily. And it'll give you a strong base to work with instead of having to reinvent the wheel. If you notice similar orchestrations or chord progressions in all of these projects, that's probably a good place to start. After that, you can start using more specific techniques to get your music written down on paper. These are where my 3 tips come in, so let's go.
Part 2. Writing the music.
And now we're here at the blank page, or the empty project session. Tip number 1 is harmony and melody. The easiest way to think about this is major versus minor. Since we're writing a horror film, we're probably going to base our melody in one of the minor modes. It immediately gives the audience a sense of uneasiness and foreboding of what's to come. We can get a lot more creative with this though. We have major and minor chords. Now let's add some diminished and augmented chords. A lot of the time, the goal for a horror movie score is to make the audience feel unresolved. And adding these harmonies that by nature are not resolved can be a really effective tool. So I have some things that make sense. If the melody outlines the chords, even if the harmony is diminished or augmented, it will sound creepy, but expected. Something I love to do that really throws listeners off is just add in random notes that don't make any sense. Remember, the goal is to be uneasy, so having sections of your music that seem distorted or twisted or even sometimes just wrong will definitely fit the vibe. Now, if I wanted to, I could analyze this and say, this is the flat 9 of this minor chord, but I found it through listening and trying different things out, so don't get too bogged down in the theory of what you're doing. Tip 2 is range and orchestration. You may have a chord progression and melody ready, let's use the one we came up with in the last example, but orchestrating your idea is where it really comes to life. Choosing which instrument plays what and how they play it can really change the energy and atmosphere of a piece. Let's take the melody we came up with. On the piano, it sounds like this. Now let's try the same melody, same notes and rhythms, but on a violin instead. Even though it's the same idea, it sounds completely different, which is awesome. For creepy orchestrations, some of my favorite instruments to use are strings, woodwinds, accordion or other key instruments like piano, and percussion instruments, especially found percussion, things like bottles and cans. It sounds very creepy. So we changed what instrument has the melody. Let's orchestrate out this entire idea and see what it sounds like. So I finished orchestrating, and I think I went in the wrong direction a little bit. So I have some orchestral things going on, some horns, bassoons, woodwinds, things like that, percussion. And it just sounds a little like too Tim Burton-y for me. Here's what it sounds like. So great if it's a spooky but like kind of fun vibe, right? I even had these 2 running tracks of flutes and oboes that made it even cheesier. So like it's fine, but it's definitely not going to be in like the Nun soundtrack or something. So I decided to think back on the tips that I just gave you and figured out that less is probably more in this example. So I reorchestrated everything. This is just piano and like a bass track. So again, MIDI instruments aren't always the best, but here's what that sounds like. Much more ominous, much more creepy, but it's all the same notes, right? It's the same melody, just thought of in a different way. That's the power of orchestration. Tip number 3 is a big one that a lot of composers, including myself, often overlook, and that is silence. Sometimes there is nothing more effective than nothing. Think back in times in your life when you have actually been scared. Maybe you were searching around in the dark for something or someone, or maybe you heard a really loud noise followed by nothing at all. Silence can be the most effective tool for building fear in the listener. 1, because silence is scary, and 2, because in the culture of horror movies, audiences are conditioned for jump scares. There will be barely any sound, maybe just audio of the characters breathing in the scene, and then boom, giant orchestral hit to accompany the monster that just popped out. If your project needs a jump scare, that's great. More power to you. But because of that history, just silence, even if it's followed by nothing, can be super effective. In the reorchestration of the melody we've been working on, I added some longer pauses to let the audience really sit in that quiet. And I think it turned out really well. Giving the score opportunities to lighten up or drop out completely will also stop the music from becoming too monotonous, which will make every cue mean more to the listener and strengthen the story overall. Okay, before we get to the secret 4th tip, if you've made it this far in the video and gotten something out of it, please interact with this video, give it a like, comment, share so more people can see it, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and leave a comment listing your favorite horror movie score and why. Alright, here is the final tip. Tip number 4 is what connects everything we've talked about in this video, and that is tension and release. If you've spent any amount of time on music theory YouTube, you've heard these terms before. Basically, all music can boil down to moments of tension and moments of release. If I start a piece in this chord, I feel pretty at rest. If I move anywhere else, even if it's another consonant-sounding chord, there's an element of tension in that movement. We can resolve the chord by returning to a more at-rest place, or we can extend the tension by moving somewhere else. The same thing can work for just melodies. Let's say we have this pattern. If I break, any break from what the audience is expecting naturally has a lot of tension in it, which can be a really effective tool in your writing. All of these other tips, harmony, range, orchestration, melody, silence, they all are specific ways of eliciting tension and release in your music. At the same time, following none of the other tips can also provide a lot of tension. Imagine a nursery rhyme being played on a music box in the middle of a possessed house. The range is completely normal, the harmony is super standard, but it's still really creepy. The juxtaposition of something that's so calm and tranquil in a scene that is anything but creates tension in the audience's perception of what's happening.
Conclusion.
So that's it. Go out and write the next iconic horror score. Don't be afraid to include some 80s synth either. If you have any other tips to share, leave them in the comments. And give this video a like so more people can see it. Subscribe to this channel for more music theory content, and check out my original music on this channel and on streaming services. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween.